Someone said something cold to you. Maybe it was weeks ago. Maybe it was years. And yet, here you are, lying awake, replaying it, word for word. Their expression, your silence, the exact way the air felt in that room. You have moved on from better things than this. So why won't your brain let this one go? The answer is not weakness. It is not insecurity, at least not entirely. It is something far older than you, far older than language, far older than the idea of a self that could be hurt. Your brain is doing exactly what it was built to do. The problem is that it was built for a world that no longer exists. Think about your life right now. You have people who like you, people who love you, and somewhere in the background, barely significant in the grand scheme of things, there is someone who does not. A coworker who dismissed your idea in a meeting, a distant family member who made a cutting remark at dinner, someone online who told you your opinion was worthless. These people are a small fraction of your social world, and yet your mind returns to them over and over, while the people who actually care about you barely register with the same intensity. Why? This is what psychologists call negativity bias. And it is not a flaw in your thinking, it is a feature, one that your ancestors depended on to survive. Roy Baumeister, a social psychologist at the University of Queensland. His research found something simple and devastating. Bad is stronger than good. A single insult requires multiple compliments to balance out in your mind. A single rejection can overshadow dozens of moments of acceptance. This is not irrational. This is calibration. For most of human history, the cost of ignoring a threat was far higher than the cost of ignoring an opportunity. Missing a chance at food was unfortunate. Missing a sign that someone in your group wanted you gone could be fatal. Your brain does not distinguish between a passive-aggressive email and a tribal elder deciding you are no longer welcome. Both register in the same ancient circuitry. Both trigger the same scanning, the same rehearsing, the same obsessive analysis. You are not overthinking it. You are threat assessing it. The machinery is the same. Only the stakes have changed. Here is where it gets stranger. The people your brain fixates on are rarely the most dangerous people in your life. They are usually the most socially ambiguous. The person who clearly hates you is predictable. Your brain files them, tracks them, and moves on. But the person who might hate you, the one whose intentions are unclear, the one who smiled at you last Tuesday but ignored you this Thursday, that is the one who keeps you up at night. Uncertainty is the real trigger. Researchers at the University of Toronto, led by psychologist Michael Inzlicht, have shown that the brain devotes more resources to processing uncertain threats than to processing known ones. Ambiguity is cognitively expensive. Your brain cannot stop working on an unresolved social problem the same way it cannot stop working on an incomplete task. It is what Bluma Zygarnik first documented in 1927 when she noticed that waiters remembered unfinished orders far better than completed ones. An unresolved relationship is an open loop. Your brain is trying to close it. And closing a social loop for your ancestors was not a matter of emotional comfort. It was a matter of survival. Consider where you actually come from. For 95% of human history, your ancestors did not live in cities or suburbs or anywhere near the kind of anonymity you move through every day. They lived in small bands, 50 to 150 people. Everybody knew everybody. There was no leaving the group. There was no starting over somewhere else. No blocking someone and moving on with your life. If someone in your group turned against you, you needed to know. You needed to understand why. You needed to figure out how to repair it or how to defend yourself against it. Exile from the group in that world was not a metaphor for death. It was often a prelude to it. Robin Dunbar, the British anthropologist who proposed the cognitive limit now known as Dunbar's number, argued that the human brain's extraordinary size relative to other primates evolved largely to handle the complexity of social relationships, not to understand nature, not to make tools, to track people, to model their intentions, to predict who was loyal, who was wavering, and who was a threat. Your prefrontal cortex is, in a very real sense, a social survival organ, and it is still doing that job. Even when you are alone in a room with no predators and a full refrigerator, it is running the same ancient software. Something deep in your nervous system registers it as a signal that requires a response. Not a polite social response, a survival response. Your heart rate shifts. Your attention narrows. You begin to model that person's behavior, predict their next move. Rehearse what you should have said. Imagine what you might say next. This is your brain trying to solve a problem it was designed to solve. It just cannot tell that the problem is not actually life-threatening. There is a word for this kind of replay: rumination, and the research on it is sobering. Susan Nolen-Hoeksema at Yale University spent over 20 years studying how rumination works and who it affects most. She found that people who ruminate do not just experience negative events more intensely. They experience them for longer, spread the negative feeling into unrelated areas of their lives, and are far more likely to develop depression and anxiety. Rumination is not processing. It is looping. Your brain thinks it is solving the problem, but it is circling the same piece of evidence over and over, never reaching a conclusion, because the conclusion your ancient brain wants, which is to either repair the relationship or neutralize the threat, is not available to you in the way it once was. You cannot confront most of these people. You cannot repair most of these relationships. The coworker moved on. The relative is at a different table at every family gathering. The stranger online does not know your name, and so the loop stays open. The brain keeps scanning. The thought keeps returning at 2 a.m. Now here is the part that most people miss. The brain does not only replay the negative thing that was said. It replays you, your response, your silence, the moment you did not speak up, or the moment you did and it came out wrong, or the moment you smiled when you should have held firm. What looks like obsession about another person is often, underneath it, obsession about yourself, about who you were in that moment, about whether that moment revealed something true about you. Psychologists call this self-referential processing, and it activates one of the most consistent regions in the brain, the medial prefrontal cortex, which lights up whenever you think about yourself in relation to others. The social threat and the self-concept threat are processed in the same neighborhood of the brain. When someone makes you feel small, your brain is not just tracking them as a threat. It is updating its model of you. It is asking, is this true? Is this what I actually am? And if the answer is uncertain, the loop continues. This is why criticism from someone you respect is often easier to process than contempt from someone you barely know. Criticism gives you information. Contempt gives you nothing to work with except the feeling of having been reduced. And a reduced self-concept is one of the most destabilizing experiences a social animal can have. So what do you actually do with all of this? The first thing is to understand that the loop is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign that your threat detection system is functioning. The goal is not to feel nothing when someone treats you badly. The goal is to recognize when the loop has stopped giving you useful information and started feeding on itself. There is a difference between processing a social experience and rehearsing it endlessly. Processing moves. Rumination stays still. The second thing is to recognize what your brain is actually trying to close. It is not trying to punish you. It is trying to answer a question. Usually the question is some version of, am I safe? Am I valued? Am I someone worth defending? If you can answer that question directly, without requiring the other person's involvement, the loop often eases. Not immediately, not perfectly, but it eases. Your ancestors needed that loop. They needed to track the person in the group who was pulling away, the elder who seemed cold, the ally who had not made eye contact in 3 days. That scanning kept them alive. It kept the group coherent. It made them careful in the right ways at the right times. You are the result of all of that. The vigilance, the social memory, the obsessive modeling of other minds. Every time your brain drags you back to a conversation that hurt, it is doing what it was shaped over hundreds of thousands of years to do. Tonight, when a face surfaces in your mind that you do not want there, and an old conversation replays itself for the 100th time, you will know what it actually is. Not a weakness, not a wound that never healed, just a very old brain in a very new world, still doing everything it can to keep you in the group.